think a lot of our parents are looking at this generation and wondering how is their faith growing? What is God doing in their spiritual journey? We may have peaks and glimpses of it here and there, but they're often they're really busy with sports. They're connected online. When are they? I don't know. When do we get to see what God is doing in their lives? So, wondering how you see God at work in this generation of teenagers.
Yeah, in all sorts of ways, actually. And so, Brad and I and the Full Youth Institute team, we're certainly very aware of what a tough season this is for this generation. Mental health challenges at an all-time high. So much stress related to technology, uncertainty about the future, et cetera. And yet, here's what's interesting. This generation, in fact, Pew just came out with some data a few weeks ago. This generation of young people, they are especially spiritual. They are very open to spirituality. Now, note, I didn't say they're open to organized religion, and we'll get there in just a sec. But, I think this generation, they understand the bad news of the brokenness of our world. They've experienced that palpably. And that makes the good news that Jesus offers all the more appealing. And this generation thinks really highly of Jesus, which is great news for us. In some recent Barna research that looked at 25,000 teenagers globally, they thought very highly of Jesus. They were very positive about Jesus. It's the church that they tend to be a little bit more negative to. But God is working in some powerful ways. College campuses in particular are seeing that these days. Of course, many of us are probably familiar with the Asbury renewal, revival, awakening, outpouring a few years ago. But other college campuses are seeing that too. InterVarsity, I'm on the board of InterVarsity, and they're reporting their highest year-over-year growth since 1980. One of my favorite stories from InterVarsity is a staff member who showed up for the first weekly large group meeting this fall, and she thought she was in the wrong room because there were 120 college students in the room. And last year when the group ended, there had been 20 college students, and it had grown that much. So there's something about this generation that is really open to, what Brad and I would say are Jesus's best answers to these identity, belonging, and purpose questions. And so when adults, I'll quote Young Life here, when adults earn the right to be heard, then there are lots of open doors with young people. And, as Brad was talking about that soccer scenario with with a 15-year-old.
Theoretically,
hypothetical. I was also hypothetically thinking about some parenting moments that I've heard about. And I'll quote Lisa D'Amour again, because for me, one of the most helpful phrases she's offered me as a parent is when your kids push against you, and it's inevitable that they will. They're holding so much, they're developmentally experiencing so much, they're struggling, et cetera. When they push against you, Lisa D'Amour says that we as adults, we need to be a wall for them. We need to be a wall for them. And I grew up swimming, so I think about swimmers who kick off a swimming pool wall, and young people do that against us as parents, caregivers, caring adults in developmentally appropriate ways as they're trying to figure out identity, belonging, and purpose. And when they kick against us, when they spend less time with us, when they seem to withdraw from us, it's easy for me to take that personally, to have my feelings be hurt, to even be frustrated about it. And I have reminded myself in those parenting moments so many times, Kara, be a wall. Kara, be a wall. Because eventually that kid's gonna want to come back. And if I haven't moved, if I haven't withdrawn, if I haven't backed away in self-protection, then it's so much easier for that young person to reach out. So I would just say this generation, they're open to Jesus and looking for adults who will be that unconditional loving wall for them.
Mm-hmm. And they'll swim back to that wall They need, when they get tired of out there in the world and they need some safety and they need a refuge.
Yeah.
So as if you're present, they will come back to you, and then they might push you away again.
Totally. Yeah, this is not a one and done process.
Yeah.
Like, this is an iterative process. I mean, we had some colleagues over last night for dinner who are new grandparents for the first time. They have a 4-month-old grandchild, and they're like figuring out how they're going to be a wall now that there's a grandchild in the mix. So this is, parenting is not a sprint, it's a marathon, where God continues to teach us. And can we, be grounded in our own identity, belonging, and purpose enough that we can be that wall even when our kids are swimming away.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I personally have, when I think of a wall, I think it's strong and not moving, like stable, and we're regulated, and we're not all over the place. And then I also think like a wall can be kind of stoic, but we don't want to be stoic. We want to be empathetic. Mm-hmm. I tend to be overly empathetic with my kids, and they react against that. They're like, "Mom, you're babying me. Like, I'm fine." So that balance of like empathy, but not too much empathy, and like being firm. Like, that's just a tricky thing for me. And that just brought that up as you're talking about the wall.
Well, and that's where, Joyce, if I could just add, I mean, I know your husband, Tim, and I know the kind of partnership that you have. And that's where parenting is not a solo sport. And being an adult mentor, it's not a solo sport. Ideally, we're journeying through life with others. And I was raised by a single mom who had many amazing friends who were there for her and who could help her figure out, like, how do I respond to this? Am I being overly empathetic? Am I not being empathetic enough? And so, just as I mentioned, Brad and I have had countless hallway conversations talking about our own kids, trying to figure it out, whether it's your spouse, whether it's another relative, whether it's somebody at your church, whether it's a neighbor. Like, I'm so grateful for the adults who know me and know my kids and can give me that perspective and say, yeah, for me, I'm overly helpful with my kids. And so they could say, yeah, Carrie, you're being overly helpful, back off a little bit. And hopefully we have those kind of relationships, regardless of what our family situation is.
Absolutely. I think that is so helpful, just to get other eyes on us, and to know that our kids at one stage, they might have wanted that empathy, but then as they mature, or at different points, they may not. So it is a moving target for sure.
Well, and that's, I mean, to tie both of those scenarios back to purpose, the overly helpfulness and the over empathy. Sometimes, what kids are sort of saying, but behind what they're saying is, I need to figure this out for myself, right? Like, I need to kind of grow in my own agency and decision making. They're not going to articulate it that way. They're going to say back off, or, leave me alone. But that is, really tied to they're actively working out this sense of agency and purpose and their own sense of like, I can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're pushing off that wall, and they're trying to swim, and we're like trying to hang on to them.
Right. Right. Because we know, we know more, we can be helpful. We often do know the answer, or we do know what they need to do next. It's sort of that fine dance of being available and also not being overly helpful.